Hello, hello, and thank you for joining us if you are and wherever you are from in the world, whether you're in the UK or South Africa, America, or Malaysia, or even though I know it's pretty late out there. So thank you especially to you if you are tuning in, and especially on a Sunday. We know you've probably got much better things to be doing, so we appreciate your time and for spending it with us here. So my name is Jacob Weber. As some of you may know, I run the page Kinetic Diabetic on Instagram and Facebook, and this episode is going to be the first in our series of live webinars where I get a few of my newfound buddies together to talk about what we all think is a very important topic, which is not as often addressed as we feel it should be in the public discourse around diabetes or otherwise. And that is one of men's health, specifically this month, mental health. As we all know, November is Diabetes Awareness Month, but it is also Men's Health Awareness Month. And those of you familiar with the Movember campaign will know exactly what we're talking about. Not only that, but November is also International Disability Awareness Month. And so this felt like as good a time as any to start this conversation around men's health and its relation to diabetes, because as we know, diabetes is about much more than simply managing blood sugar and counting carbs. There are so many profound physiological and mental health aspects to this condition and managing it on a daily basis. And in the context of the modern conversation around the modern man and in the race towards equality, which as we should rightly be doing, it's easy to overlook the fact that many men around the world, I think 1 in 8 men or something, suffer from some kind of mental health problem, be that depression and anxiety. And things like suicide remains the leading killer of men in the UK, for example. And so we know that a lot of guys find it difficult to talk about these things. We know that a lot of guys find it difficult to open up about these things and really truly share their honest feelings and perspectives around their mental health problems, especially so if you have a condition like diabetes, because it already feels like you're dealing with so much, it's hard to open up about something else as well. But with the two conditions so clearly linked, we find it's very, very important to create these spaces for conversation and have very open discussions around these topics. And so this first episode of 3 is going to kick off with a discussion around exercise and diabetes. So I've got a couple of amazing guests with me this evening. Just to quickly, I'll let them introduce themselves, but just a quick disclaimer here for the audience watching. This isn't quite to go into a lot of detail, textbook detail, if you like, on the physiological side of exercise. None of us are qualified fitness or exercise professionals. We're not personal trainers. We're not nutritionists. We don't have that qualified standpoint to offer specific advice on. If you have any questions around that, please do put them in the group and on the comment section. We can put them on screen and see what the guys have to say. But we're not here to discuss it from a professional perspective. We are here to discuss it from a very real, hopefully very personal perspective, and put it into the context of how we've managed our diabetes and what exercise has meant for us when it comes to self-care and good diabetes control. So I'm going to bring on the guys now. We've got Earl from Cape Town, Saleh also joining us from Cape Town, and Greg from the United States. So welcome, guys, and thank you very much for being here with me tonight.
Thanks so much, Jacob. And thanks again to everyone for tuning in all across the world, the different time zones that you're in. We really appreciate the 45 minutes to 1 hour that you carved out of your day to just listen to some guys who are diabetic, we're all type 1, who just have similar experiences, but yet our stories are so different. And, as we go on with this webinar, you'll notice we each have different accents as well. And it's actually my first time being involved in something as global as this, because usually we would only sort of view something that would be only American or only in the United Kingdom, or only in South Africa. And we have guys from all across the world. So I just want to introduce our guests to all of you. So we have Greg. He's originally from Boston, but he now lives in New York City, where he's studying his master's in social work. Funny story though, Greg is my very, very first dia buddy that I met in Cape Town almost 7 years ago, actually, we were co-workers. He was an intern, and I noticed his insulin pump, and the rest is history. So Greg is also quite keen on running. He's completed 4 Boston marathons, which he ran, and then 2 Boston marathons, which he walked. And we'll get into the details around that in a few minutes as to why he walked and never ran the race. So Greg's also type 1 diabetic. He's 28 years old. He was diagnosed in 2001. And then we have Sally, my fellow Capetonian. So Sally is 55 years old. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 17. So he's about 39 years now that he's a type 1 diabetic veteran. Definitely, I don't think there's a better word, a type 1 legend, as we call him here in the Cape. And for the past year and a half, Sally has been living as an amputee, single limb amputee. And he will definitely be sharing his story with us, as the webinar unfolds. So I just think we're just going to dive straight in. But also to all of you guys who are signed in, can you maybe just in the comment section, please just say where you're signing in from, which city in the world you're signing in from. I'd be really super interested to know where you are signing in from. So yeah, Greg, thanks again for making time for us, man. So you've ran 4 Boston marathons, which is an amazing achievement because, I don't even think I can, in the current state of fitness, I don't even think I can get past a 5K right now without losing my breath. But, just take us through that whole process of how do you actually mentally prepare to run a marathon? And it's insane. You have to surely manage your glucose, and how do you do it, before the race and maybe during the race, and what's it like after?
Yeah. So before I jump in, because we could talk for so long about that, appreciate being here today. I appreciate seeing you guys and everyone showing up as well. It's really nice to be doing this. So yeah, running and training. Ironically, the diabetes gave it so much more structure, right? So when I started doing these things, so a lot of nuts. So when I started doing these things, the CGM technology wasn't reliable for me at the time. This was almost a decade ago. It was super helpful when I wasn't running, but when I was, it would start to get inaccurate. It was just challenging to rely on that at the time. So we tended to rely more on finger pricks. And because we were doing that, every 5 to 7 to 9 kilometers, I knew I was going to have to check in. And so to your point on sort of mental approach, the diabetes broke my marathon down into these pieces.
Yeah.
So instead of, 42 Ks, it was, look, what's the next 5 Ks look like? What are the numbers, and what do I have to do to make sure that the next time I get to my check-in, I'm in a good place, right? What am I eating? What am I drinking? What am I, insulin-wise, what's happening?
Was there anything, Greg, before you started like such a big race, for example? I did a podcast last year with a guy from the UK who was a very competitive swimmer in his day, and he was an open water swimmer. Which for those tuning in who don't know, that means you basically go out into an open body of water, like a lake or a sea or something, and do it's like an Ironman style swim. And because he knew that obviously there was going to be an intense energy load required of him to complete the swim, but also his body would be regulating his temperature because he was swimming in freezing waters. He knew that he would be burning calories, burning a lot of energy, and his sugars would probably plummet. So he was like starting the race at like 19 millimoles of glucose levels, right? He was, which I don't know what it is in American terms. It's probably like 400, 500 or something. No, not millimoles, right? Or millimoles, yeah. Anyway, he was starting very, very high, is my point. So I'm curious, do you like preload before you start on a long journey, or do you just keep topping up throughout the race?
That's such a great question. So I have 2 answers here. So pre-CGM, it was a lot of preloading because we weren't quite sure how, over a marathon, what exactly would happen. And to your point, temperature plays a role for running the type of course that we're on. If we're on concrete versus a trail, so if I'm running up, a mountain somewhere, different impact. What we noticed though, and we'll get into it later, but as I started to walk, we could really see impact. And so I started to use more and more food that, so I was eating less over time, but I was eating food that would, wouldn't preload and would sort of hit more slowly.
Okay.
Some foods that were high in sort of fat, protein, and complex carbs.
The complex carbs, the proteins, and stuff like that.
Mm.
Was running something you were really into before you were diagnosed, and then you just carried it,
Oh man! So I always used to tell people this story. The first time I went running, I was, like Earl said, I was on an insulin pump at the time. And I took off the pump, put it on the kitchen table, because I was only going to be out for 20, 30 minutes. Went and ran, a couple of kilometers, and I came back. But what I realized was that being able to walk out that front door, knowing the pump was that, on the kitchen table, and then just go.
Yeah.
People wonder why I do a marathon,
No.
Wow,
Yeah,
I struggle. I struggle so much with like if I'm not wearing a CGM sensor, I struggle so much with like just leaving the glucometer, the tester at home, and actually going out for like, a walk or a run, or even if I go to gym, I don't even like leave the glucometer in the car. So
Really?
I'll always have like a backpack with me, or even if I'm in the shop walking around. So I must admit that is something that I struggle with like quite a bit. Seeing that we're having these 3 webinars, and we will get like a little bit more into mental health with a 3rd webinar, but I feel like that is just something that I just need to highlight there. And I think I just need to point out to the people watching as well that, just because we're on a panel doesn't mean that we don't struggle with, issues of mental health and, just trying to get over the next hurdle, trying to challenge ourselves, because at the end of the day, we're all type 1, whether you're in the comment section or on the panel, which kind of like brings me now to Sally. And Sally, as an amputee for the past year and a half, what is the best way for you to sort of maintain that fitness, and not just physical fitness, but also like mental health and well-being fitness? Maybe you could just take us to, since you've been amputated, how did you, go about just managing just generally?
Look, if you speak about your physical well-being and of course your mental well-being, there must be a balance. Okay, so for me, my mental health was a little bit on the rocky stages of accepting. Okay, at the beginning, but when I started my rehab and seeing the clinical psychologist, because they always check in on you, just to see how are you doing, and just talking about it, my acceptance became in a gradual way. In plain words, I accepted it immediately, after actually speaking to them. And as the months went by, you actually have, it's exactly like a roller coaster, with our with our diabetes. You actually go into moods, and when you actually look at yourself in the mirror, because that's the first thing that they actually do. You have to look at yourself in the mirror to see that, look, your part of your body's gone. And the acceptance for people that goes through it, sometimes they go through a longer stage. But for me, it was, I want to get my independence. I put goals for myself or milestones, But if we speak about our mental health, I'm still checking in with my psychologist now at the moment, just to keep things at balance for myself. And sometimes if you go out and you find this little stairs, that either the small children or somebody that didn't see a prosthetic leg or something, or if you don't put on your prosthetic leg, and I'm using the crutches, in the mall, and you get the stairs, so you feel a little bit awkward, and going to your psychologist for the mental health it is something that she brought it into balance for me. Acceptance, So accepting my diabetes 39 years back and accepting my amputation now, it was a battle, because you don't know how people will accept you. You always talk about, we've got one foot in the grave, and I've got that. So it is something that it works on you. It works on you all the time. And
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. So I was going to ask, because you mentioned that when the doctors gave you the news, you were able to. You said you kind of just came to terms with it pretty quickly, right? You were able to just accept it. But then, in your experience since then, and going out in public and facing, stares from children or whatever it was, does that then start to sort of eat away a little bit at the self-acceptance that you found when you were first given the news? Like, how does do the cracks start to show in the certainty that you had, that you were okay with it? How does that kind of work?
Yeah. Now, if it's a good question that you're actually asking, it is sometimes you feel that you have this positive mind, you've got this good mindset and things, but just that little stare, or you can have a fall. And my last fall, it actually led me to a depression for almost 3 weeks. Depression in 3 weeks. So that's when I called my psychologist, and I said, look, I can't cope with this, because I don't want to put on my prosthetic leg. I don't want to look at it, and you don't want to go out because you don't want that stares anymore. How's people going to accept you? Family members, new people that you meet. So it is overwhelming on how you put your acceptance, your realization on that I don't have a leg. So it's a lot of factors which play around the whole issue of your mental stability. And it's the balance. It's the balance.
Of course, yeah.
Of course. So for me to balance, between my diabetes, my amputation, meeting people, so and the more I speak about it becomes more accepting for myself.
Yeah, sure. It can be a very powerful tool, of course, opening up. So thank you so much, Sally, for sharing that with us. So just quickly before we go on any further, I want to just shout out to the audience. We've got some great comments here, by the way, guys. We can see your comments, and it's great to see you checking in from all over the world. We've got Johannesburg, we've got Dallas, Texas, we've got Cape Town, of course, we've got San Diego. So we've got a lot of people checking in from all over the world. So thank you very much. And also, we would love to take some questions from you guys. Like we don't have a specific kind of program in mind, really. We didn't want this to be a lecture. We want this to be interactive and give you guys the chance to ask us questions. So we have a great question here from Dallas Wilson. And this is definitely one for Greg, because I cannot answer questions on marathons at all. I won't even attempt it. Right. So I'm going to bring the first question up on the screen now. And just a note for all of you guys who are watching, please feel free to jump in with comments and questions for any of us, whether it's about marathons or whether it's about amputation, dare I say, or the mental health stigma surrounding any of that. We'll get to Earl in a second, because I want to get into Earl's story and his relationship with fitness too. But just to say, guys, please jump in with questions and we'll do our best to answer them. We might not be qualified professionals, but we have experience with diabetes at least, so please jump in. Okay, so first question is for Greg. I want to bring it up here. It's a good one. Dallas is asking, Dallas ran a marathon in Belfast a few years ago, so congratulations, Dallas, in the dark without a CGM, wearing a pump. And the question being, what did you carry with you, Greg, when you were running your marathons, whether running or walking? How was it that you ensured during your check-ins, during your stages, that you were staying, where you needed to be?
Yeah, great question. So I'm smiling because reading through that, we took such. I mean, I could have said the same thing. We're meeting people along the way, carrying the gels, carrying the things. It was very similar. It tended to be things that were more sort of glucose heavy, right? So gels and gummies. That in a pinch, if I saw the blood sugar was trending down or going down quickly, I knew it would bring me back up. And that was sort of the mindset throughout. And then to that point about sort of afterwards as well, then it tended to be this question about how do you stabilize and how do you bring in the protein, the complex carbs, so on and so forth. But yeah, I also feel very lucky to have this sort of network of people around. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes a village, I guess is the expression.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly. I was about to say what stood out for me from Dallas's comment is that she had friends handing her, gel packs and things along the way. And, it just shows the importance of, having a support system when you are diabetic, whether you're type 1 or type 2, or even if you have gestational diabetes. And what I also wanted to say to Sally was, it's just so amazing that, like, as a man, you can actually speak openly about seeking help, mental health help, by seeing a psychologist. Because I feel like a lot of men, they shy away on social media from just speaking about diabetes generally. And there are a few here and there, but you really have to sift through through a lot of the accounts to actually come across a man's account who actually speaks openly about diabetes. And I feel like that's why it's so important that we have women on our in our comment section as well, female viewers, because it's just so important that they also need to sort of see that we are, sensitive and we are vulnerable. It's just that, we hide behind our egos a lot of the time. And we'll get more into the ego chat, when we get to, to the third video, even the second video. I think the mental health theme will just run through all of these videos. But I just quickly want to get to Greg. And before I get to you, Greg, funny thing is, after Greg left Cape Town, right? So we would keep in touch, from time to time. And Greg wasn't responding for about 2 to 3 months. And I was wondering, where the hell is Greg? He's probably just busy. But then I actually found out that Greg, he had a bit of an accident. So Greg has something called hypoglycemic unawareness. I think I don't even know if that's the medical term, like the disclaimer said, we're not doctors. And long story short, Greg had a low in the middle of the night while he was sleeping, and he seized so bad that he shook violently and he was flung out of his bed, and he actually cracked a vertebrae. Was it in your neck or in your back, Greg?
So it was my mid back, yeah.
In his mid back, like he showed me his X-rays actually at the time, and he was like literally like that much away from being like paralyzed. Well, actually not like paralyzed, like completely paralyzed from the waist down. And yet, after he recovered, being in a body cast and all of that, in a body brace, he still goes and he walks 2 Boston marathons. So, dude, here I am. I mean, all of us and some of the viewers as well, watching, like, they just in complete disbelief, like, this injured guy actually still walks a marathon. And us were like, fine, nothing wrong with us. We like just chilling, So Greg, take me through that. Take us through, take us all through that recovery process of where you got the mental strength from, and when after you had the accident, day one, what was it like from day one, and as the weeks sort of progressed, how did it go for you, physically and mentally?
Yeah. Great question. So I always joke I'm kind of stubborn. So this thing happened on a Friday night. I had a long run the next morning that I never got to go on because this happened.
Oh.
Yeah. So to connect that to the marathon a couple months later, when this all happened, my first thought was, I got to show up. I don't know how. Run, walk, wheelchair, whatever it is. Like, however we get from point A to point B, we'll figure out the details.
Yeah.
But that was also, when you're laid out in a hospital bed. I mean, due to an unexpected, I felt like I needed something, my day-to-day.
You must have been way ahead of the recovery schedule, though, right? You must have just ignored doctor's orders and just got out there and started getting the steps in sooner than you should have done, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, so, there are two ways to approach this. What can I do, and what are the doctors saying that I may be able to do? Like Earl said, I was very fortunate. There were no sort of, significant, like traumatic sort of bodily things that happened to my back and my spine, right? So that, the doctor said, look, this is a severe injury. We don't know what recovery will look like, but right now in this moment, we can't tell you not to go out and walk 5Ks.
Yeah.
No, yeah, probably sensible.
So it's like, what do you do? My stubborn self said, okay, look, from a mental health side, I got to go. I got to get out. But we played it by ear. It was safety first, but also long term. How do you approach that? So, for the first month or two, it was day by day, and then you start to look out further and further and further and figure out, what does a week look like? What does the next month look like? What does the next 6 months?
Often, as type 1s, right, often all we have is day by day sometimes, because it's very easy with a condition like ours and with so much fear, that goes into, with so much fear that goes into the potential long-term complications around this condition and what happens if things, are left uncontrolled for a certain amount of time and so on. Sometimes all you have is focusing on what you can do on a daily basis. I read a really interesting quote by another type 1 diabetic, a while ago when I was first diagnosed, and it says something along the lines of, don't live in the past, that's just depressing. Don't live in the future, because that's anxiety. You live in the present and the here and now, where you have control, right? You have control at this present moment to make a certain choice. And whether that choice is testing your blood, pricking your finger, scanning your Libre, or making a choice to tie your shoes and go for a run. I mean, I'm never going to make that choice. I hate running, but I'll go to the gym instead. So I thought that, and that again ties into the aspect of taking control of your mental and your physical health by making decisions within the moment that you have control of them. And once you piece all of these decisions together, the long run just becomes one big, positive exercise in a way. If you can be consistent with it, if you can keep it, and there will be tough days. There'll be days when it's cold out and you don't want to go for a run. There'll be days when, Sally, you may have faced tougher days in public than others, for example, or days when you just feel like crap and you don't have a great workout and you feel kind of bad for going, or whatever it might be. So there will be tough days. Of course, you can't be perfect, but I feel like taking control of that moment and just piecing all these moments together is what's going to really help you create a systematic routine of self-care and control, rather than looking forward to a future which hasn't happened yet, getting wrapped up in a future that is so uncertain that you can't be sure. And like everyone automatically thinks worst case, but rarely do we think best case. Like everyone says, oh, what are these complications? These complications like organ failure, worst case, like Sally with the amputation and whatnot. But actually, what if that doesn't happen to me? And what if I can take positive control of my life in a different way? So yeah, that's why the mental health and like Greg, like you said, being able to free yourself for a few minutes or 20-minute, 30-minute run by taking the pump off and just freeing yourself for a while, that has huge knock-on emotional benefits, I feel, right? Just by releasing yourself for a while from what can be a very restricted or feel like a very restrictive disease sometimes, right?
And I mean, we all have so much routine, whatever it might be, that that sort of can't lose sight of the forest for the trees, whatever it is. Yeah, you got to balance, the minute to minute with, like you said, those knock-on effects.
Yeah, Cool. I want to. You haven't spoken about your personal relationship with fitness yet. I'm curious about you before and after you were diagnosed. Were you into sports as a kid? Did you grow up playing a lot of sports? Have you continued doing so since then? I think when you and I last spoke, you talked about you joined the cricket club, I think it was. So tell us a little bit about your experience with exercise and how it's helped you, in managing this condition.
Yeah, man. So even before diagnosis, I was always into sport. Used to watch sport on TV, cricket and rugby. I'm not much of a soccer fan, but cricket and rugby definitely I used to watch. Soccer I would maybe only play, socially. But then after diagnosis, I must say, I think like I took a bit of a knock without realizing that I took a knock, mentally, because in my head after diagnosis, I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't do that anymore because, whatever it affects my glucose, oh, I can't eat that, can't eat that. When you first diagnosed, there's this fear of the unknown. And I definitely, like, I still gym, right? But I actually feel like I can do better physically, like in terms of, carving out the time, consulting with a dietitian and actually, getting onto a proper plan. Because I've always been like that skinny kid in the class, like that kid who eats anything and never picks up weight. And even now, as an adult, like as a 35-year-old male, I still feel like, well, I guess the upside, it keeps me looking young. But, but I would very much like to, I guess, like maybe like 5 kilograms or something. Exactly. But look, like I said to you, I definitely do want to get into sport. I definitely do want to do better in terms of that. And I feel like I need to challenge myself more because I still feel like there's something within me holding me back, and I mean, I do the gymming thing, but I've got such a fear of insulin, like how long before I work out do I take my insulin, and I need to make sure that like 2 to 3 hours has gone by, before I even start my workout session. But then what if I miscalculated and now I'm on 13 or 14 sugars, which is like, what's that, 220, 250 maybe? And then I was advised, like, if you're higher than a certain number, you don't work out. It's like, oh man, I got to miss my workout today. You know what I mean? So that is sort of like my struggle back and forth. And please listen, for those watching, I mean, if you have a similar issue with working out, if you have a fear of going low, a fear of insulin, please share your experience in the comment section. We would definitely like to sort of respond to that. But I feel like I do need to take it day by day. And I do feel like I have consulted as well with a psychologist in terms of just overcoming the fear of hypos, driving long distances. I fear, we're getting a bit away from exercises, but just like on a broader sort of issue, just like the long distance thing, the walking long distance, the hiking for like 2 or 3 hours, and like thinking to yourself, oh, my glucose, when last did I eat? And, which way is my glucose going? So I must say, like, I would very much like to challenge myself more to reach that optimal level that I actually can, that I know I can achieve. But I feel like I'm holding back out of this fear, and that's as honest of an answer, that I can share with everyone.
No, interesting. Okay, well, I think we have there's a great comment from Ivory Bennett, which I'll show on the screen now. So Ivory sounds like she's had a similar experience to yourself. She was a gym rat before diagnosis, and now she finds it too much work to plan and prepare and address. It's no longer mindless, which is actually a pretty important point to make. Like, it used to be that you just pick up your keys, put on your shoes, and go to the gym. But now there are so many factors, around making sure that you're in a good place to do so. Because you never know, you might, and because exercise affects diabetes in so many different ways, right? Like, strength training will actually raise your blood sugars in many instances, whereas cardio or anaerobic, strength training will raise your sugars. Aerobic or cardio will lower them typically. So you can't always be too sure of how your body's going to respond. And sometimes, like, I'll go and lift weights, like expecting my sugars to rise, but actually it turns out maybe I'm not lifting them heavy enough because they end up dropping instead, and my body thinks it's doing a cardio workout. So I don't know. So that it can be pretty difficult to predict, and I'm not surprised. Ivory, I'm sure you're not alone, and it's amazing that you've sought therapy to deal with T1D because of the profound mental implications it has. And again, going away from exercise for a minute. But on the mental health side of things, what people often forget is that it's not just like a mental health thing in terms of the anxiety or the frustration in dealing with the condition, but how physiologically our blood sugars change our moods. Like you know how it is when you're high and you're grouchy and irritated and pissed off at everything. And then of course when you're low, like the hypo anxiety like you're describing is very, very real as well. So it's not just it's not just the dealing with this thing, which can be an absolute pain in the ass on a daily basis. It's not just getting annoyed at that or wondering why me or anything like that, but physically inside you, the change in sugar levels is causing your body to react and respond and feel certain ways as well. So it's no wonder that a lot of us, in fact, should be seeking therapy for our diagnosis, because it really does have profound implications for how we see ourselves, our self-confidence, how we deal with the world when we're dealing with so much else at the same time.
Yeah. No, definitely. And, seeing that we're on that now, in terms of your identity and your self-confidence, and I just have a question for Sally. Sally, you've probably had to deal with that blow of being diagnosed. You're 55 years old, you're diagnosed type 1 diabetic at the age of 17. And that was not in 2021. So there was probably a lot of things that you needed to figure out for yourself. And I mean, you probably struggled your way through that. And then, a year and a half later, you become an amputee, and then you need to deal with that again. So now there's like that double blow as well. But look, I guess the positive side of everything is there's a lot of information out there, but there's also a lot of misinformation, and I just want to find out from you, through that whole rehabilitation process and, going through it, being vulnerable, for that time, how did that impact your identity as a man? Now you're dependent on, occupational therapists, physiotherapists. And I saw you posted a picture as well, and there was a lot of ladies around you, like 5, 6, 7 ladies. That was your care team. And now you're this man. What was it like to be vulnerable around them, and how did that impact your identity as a man? I think you're on mute, Sally.
I'm on mute. Oh, am I on
That's
now?
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go.
It's actually, if I can just go to the second day of my amputation, okay, you're lying in that hospital bed, and the nurse comes in and she says, Mr. Hendricks, I have to bath you, and you look at this female, and you say, can we leave it? Said, no,
Yeah.
you cannot, and you actually lie there, and you're exposed, So my shame actually went away. I thought to myself, Sally, you're going to get cleaned. That's all that went through my mind, And but getting back to the rehabilitation, it is something that you see all of these the OTs and your the therapists and all, and most of them is actually females, okay? And I accepted them because they are there to help me. So for me, what I went through in my hospital bed and what I went through rehab was chalk and cheese, But just for them to actually take you through the process of the training on how to become mobile again, it is something astounding on what they were taught on how to apply it on you. And I just put all that effort in to actually make myself look, they are here. Sally, don't rebel. Don't go into denial. Don't go into depression. And because there was a lot of guys that was around me that refused to actually do exercises because, oh, you can't touch me. I don't want to do it. And as they saw myself doing everything that I was told to do, it actually made me a better, how can I say, not a mentor in a way, but they looked up to me. Whenever I walked into the gym, Sally's walking in with not to praise myself, but with sunshine,
Yeah.
and I felt, in a way, I felt very nice because they all grouped around. So it wasn't like a one-on-one session. In fact, the OTs and the physios, they all actually enjoyed it because then we did it in a group. So it was a team, if we did exercises, we did rehabilitation, we did it as a team. And diabetics and amputees and things, we shy away. But that brought everybody together to actually do something,
Yeah.
And even like on the study of, I have to be very careful eating uh, my breakfasts and things before the gym, and testing your sugar because the nurse will actually come around to check you up and things. And when I went on my prosthetic leg, I even did more research on a normal person would actually use about, say, 45% of what is intake. The others get stored. A diabetic amputee will use 65%. So my sugar levels drop quick.
Wow.
So I can have a chocolate or I can have the glucose sweets or a meal before I actually go for my training or my physio sessions. And can say plus minus 20 minutes down the line, I have to check my sugars. And then I have to sit down, maybe eat a chocolate quick, because it's 45 minutes to an hour session. So these things have to be taken into consideration. Like Greg will also say, that when running or yourself, Jacob, when you go gymming, I have to actually not only consider my diabetes or myself, but moving with this prosthetic leg takes up more energy and it uses a lot of energy. And in fact, I got that balance also right now. But before, like say 5 months back, that balance wasn't there. I used to have hypos continuously during the day because of my energy levels. So yes, the rehab, it's something that opened my mind a lot. I put my shame one side, you move forward, and
Yeah.
again, acceptance, acceptance of
That-
the help is here, I'm taking it, to
That's
improve
amazing.
myself.
And I mean, that's amazing, Saleh. And when you said people started looking up to you, you probably felt a responsibility for the others as well. Like, look, they look up to me. I can't let them down. So that actually drives you to
Yeah,
push even harder towards your recovery. Yeah. Jacob, you had a comment? Sorry, go ahead, Saleh. You can finish your point.
It's just that working as a team. Greg will know that when you train, Jacob will also know that, and yourself. It is better to work as a team with synergy to get a better end goal. To get a better end goal instead of working as an individual.
Yeah, I completely agree. When I put up a comment just now from Amanda, who suffers from terrible hypophobia herself. And sometimes bring it back up. Sometimes overeats. And so, yeah, Amanda, it's not nice to hear that you're going through that. And it's easy for me to sit here and say that, one day I'm sure you will, because I don't know anything about you. But, but thank you for sharing that with us. And we hope that, and just as we've been saying here, working with a team is a really important way of perhaps addressing this and figuring out coping mechanisms and strategies that you can use to help you become more comfortable in yourself, in knowing that you're, taking the right steps to address. There might be like a root cause that isn't quite, where you think it might be, that is causing the problem, for example. So hopefully, whether it's through therapy, as Dallas says here quite rightly, that she would highly recommend everyone, especially type 1 diabetics to tap into therapy to process things. It can be a very, very useful and very, very powerful tool. And I think breaking the stigma around therapy is a very important thing to do, because people have this kind of image that, you know, you must be a crazy person if you're going to therapy. But the reality is, it's just someone who is a professional. It's like going to a personal trainer, except for your mind. You know, someone who is a paid professional, who is experienced in this field, and who, the best thing actually I find from going to therapy and speaking to a therapist is that they don't care about your life. Now, what I mean by that is, like, they have no vested in, besides the client-patient relationship, they have no vested interest in what is causing you pain. You know, they don't have that, like, familial relationship. They don't have that. They're not a friend of yours. You know, sure, you can build a very positive relationship with a therapist, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is, like, they have a very objective, professional view of what is going on, and are able just to present an alternative perspective for you, rather than letting you get wrapped up in your own bubble of existence, if you like. So of course your therapist cares about you, but they don't have that, you know, they don't have that kind of perspective, that personal perspective, which might cloud their judgment. So I think that's a very important point to make as well. A couple of other great comments here, guys. I'm conscious of time. I don't want to keep people here too long. I appreciate it. So people are already giving up their Sunday night. So thank you guys if you're still with us. Great comment here from Adrian, who says the year after he was diagnosed, he did things he would not have done, such as skydiving, which I love. I've been skydiving because that was a few years before I was diagnosed, in fact. So I still got to enjoy it. It's awesome, actually. I can't wait to go back. But it's brilliant that you were able to take that, you know, initiative and prove to yourself that you can live intensely too. And actually, what I find interesting, if I can say, I'm not picking on you, Adrian, for saying this, because we all feel this way. We all feel, I think, as males, as people living with a chronic condition, we feel that we have to prove things in a certain way. You know, my condition will not hold me back, my diabetes will not deny me, and all the rest of it, which is a perfectly normal mindset to have. But I suppose in creating this kind of conversation and having these conversations, what I'd love to work towards is a world in which we don't see diabetes as being a but. We see it as being an and. You know, it's like, I'm type 1 diabetic, but I can still skydive. What about I'm type 1 diabetic and I skydive? You know, it's like we not trying to get not wrapped up in what we perceive this condition to be, a restrictive one, but more so that we just see it as part of our lives, not taking over all of our lives, even if God knows on a daily basis it feels that way sometimes. We still, you know, we can still live, you know, we can still live not freely necessarily, but we can still live, you know, fulfilling, active, you know, engaging, involved lives, doing all sorts of crazy things. And so it would be nice to shift the mindset. I myself have a lot of work to do in this respect. I struggled with my identity massively after I was diagnosed. I was in denial for the longest time. I hated needles, still hate needles, which didn't help at all. And I felt very, very, you know, I felt victimized. You know, I was very much like, oh, why me? I was really playing the victim when I was diagnosed. And so I felt like I had to kind of prove that I could do a lot of things as well and keep up my exercise routine. So yeah, there's an interesting kind of perspective, I think, to be gained from that. Good question. One more comment from Adrian, which I want to address before I forget, which we won't touch on now because, Adrian, this is going to be for next week. So please tune in then, because Adrian's asking, when we start dating, what do we tell girls? Because typically, you know, diabetes is viewed by a lot of people as a disability, as a weakness, and it's very misunderstood. And weakness is not traditionally a part of what you would consider a virile alpha male to be. And so, a very good question, what we tell girls. And so, actually, Adrian, if you can join us next week, please do, because next week's episode, which will be the same time, next Sunday at 6 p.m. GMT, 8 p.m. South Africa, we're going to be having another webinar on diabetes and sexual health and relationships. And it's probably going to be the most personal I've ever been on camera, I think, between myself and Noel and whoever else joins us. So that's going to be very real, very raw. Ladies, you are welcome to join us too, of course, and we would love your input. In fact, we would especially love your input next week, because we're going to get into real detail and hopefully be very, very open about diabetes and sexual health and all of the connotations that come with it, both from a masculine perspective and from a general kind of relationship one as well. So great question, and we will definitely get to that next week. Dallas has a question, meanwhile, for all of us, and that is, hang on a second, let me pull it up. Oh,
yeah. The one above it.
Find your tribe helps immeasurably. Great point, Ivory. That's exactly why we're doing this. That's exactly why from three corners of the world, the three of us are getting together to have these conversations, and we really hope that we've provided some insight and given you guys something to think about. Question for all of us: who is on your diabetes support team? So let's go. I'm going to go around this way. So I'll come to Greg first. Who's your diabetes support team, Greg?
So it's shifted over time for me. When I was running, there are a lot of people in the running world here. Boston, New York. Right now, today, I'd say immediate family, some close friends I've known for years, right? Especially from running. And then as I sort of move from Boston to New York, enter a new sort of professional chapter, I'm curious about that. Who else could be here, And what am I looking at that's helpful for me? So it's always sort of shifting and changing.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, Sally. Well, Sally's got a great care team around him from the sound of things. How about on a personal level, Sally? Who do you kind of connect with and look for support and seek support from on a more daily basis?
On a daily basis, I mean, I've got my family, okay, and they support me more than 100%, okay. But if you look at the personal journey, if I must answer your question on my prosthesis, my physiotherapist, they've become like family to me. So I would never want to exclude them in that way, because I see them on a weekly basis, and the other support structure is my psychologist. I mean, a wonderful lady, and I will always tell her that when I walk into your room, I feel comfortable with you. You're like family to me. So yes, my family or they do support me, okay, but I am more with my prosthesis, my physiotherapist, and my psychologist now. So I've included them as family, and just being around them has uplifted me. My balance is there. So yes, so that is my support structure.
It's nice. How about you?
Amazing. Yeah, so first and foremost, my wife, not just considering, what we're going to eat for breakfast, lunch, and supper. I mean, for also just dealing with my mood swings as well because of my up and down glucose levels, So I just feel like, over the years, she's really began to understand, like certain things that I do and maybe say, is just like as an outburst or something like that. And she's like, did you check your sugar? Did you check your sugar? What are you on now? So first and foremost, my wife, and then family as well, my wife's parents, my parents, on a personal level as well. And I mean, even some of the people who are probably tuned in tonight, I mean, they're always so considerate, whenever I with them, they make sure like, oh, do you have, what can you eat? What do you need? I mean, look, long story short, we can basically eat anything in moderation. But just the fact that, people ask me, is there anything I can get you? Is there anything specific that you need? I just think just people asking that just says a whole lot, In terms of a medical team, I have an endo, but I feel rather disconnected from him. He's been like the first person that I've seen now for a number of years, but yet, like the comment you made, Jacob, on, psychologists, like it's a doctor-patient relationship and you're just another number. I kind of feel like I'm like that. And I've asked a couple of people around Cape Town for like suggestions for an endo as well. And then I've got like an ophthalmologist that I see once a year. Yeah, but I know I should do better in terms of that. I don't have a podiatrist, and I don't have a dietitian, So I think maybe I just need to look a bit deeper into that. Yeah, that's it.
I guess so. It's whatever works for you, right? Like you seem in pretty good health, so you might not need to support yourself at this stage and surround yourself with professional teams as long as you know what you're doing in your own way to manage things like that. So it's fair enough. I mean, I don't have any at the minute. I mean, I haven't seen an endocrinologist for about 18 months. So blame lockdown and blame. I've been living in Malaysia for the last 5 years, but now I'm back in the UK with my family, and just between the move and just being in lockdown over there for a while, I haven't been. I've got my HbA1c tested. Actually, even that was over a year ago. So, but yeah, I haven't seen an endo in over 18 months. Like I was pretty let down. I feel by like the professional care that I found in Malaysia. To be honest, I don't want to paint the whole system there as being bad, but my personal experience with one endo wasn't great. I mean, we have a great healthcare system in the UK, so I've got my appointment with them in a couple of weeks, and but again, I don't have a very close I don't have any personal relationship with them whatsoever. My immediate support system would just be family and friends, but even I've been living overseas by myself for the last 5-6 years. So, my family are always there on the end of the phone if I need them. But I don't know. I think I manage my condition fairly, I guess, just fairly independently. Like I just get on with it, which means I probably don't pay anywhere near as much attention to it as I should. But I'm still there. I'm still thinking like my HbA1c isn't awful. Could be better. Could be a lot worse. My friends, though, I'm very, the fact that I have an entire Instagram account dedicated to diabetes, and my friends know all about it by now. They're happy to support. They're curious about the condition. They want to know, like you say, or like just asking simple questions like, "Oh, can you have this?" or do you need me to prepare that for you?" Whatever it might be. As you say, it says a lot. So I have some brilliant support, from very close friends in that respect, and who take a bit of interest in my condition, which is sometimes just all you need. And then them asking you questions and you answering them. Sometimes when you're answering, you find, you find something for yourself to look into or something. If they ask you a question which you can't answer, then you're like, crap, maybe I should look that up for myself. So as long as there's someone there to have a conversation with you and just to ask you the right questions and get you to explain what is going on, that in itself, that can be like a pretty powerful therapeutic, process as well. So even if therapy, because I know it's easy to say, just go to therapy, but let's face it, it's not always as accessible for people as it should be. And so I would encourage anyone who can't maybe find the access to the therapy that they need, try just having an open conversation with your closest friend about it, because they wouldn't be your closest friend. You couldn't trust them to have that conversation, right? So I don't know, even just opening up and letting it out can be a very, very therapeutic, and it's almost like an open grieving process in a way, I suppose. So don't be afraid to have that conversation with your closest friends, because they love you, they support you, they want the best for you. So if you can't get access to the therapy you need, then that might be a way forward. Good question. Yes, thank you. Food for thought, for sure. And exactly, I just said, in fact. So answering that question kind of poses more questions, which is great. We should always be asking. We should always be curious. We should always be asking questions of ourselves, of others, learning what we can do to do not necessarily better, because I don't like the concept of better or good and bad in diabetes, really. Like there are obviously numbers, there are places you should be, there are ranges you should be in, but to tar things is, and I used to be like, I'm the worst diabetic in the world because my control wasn't great. But that's not helping anybody, so. But we should always be curious as to how we can, dare I say, improve or manage things, a little bit more tightly with a little more control. We should always be asking questions, always be looking at new things, always doing what we can to just help understand things a bit better. You can't measure what you don't manage. Sorry, you can't manage what you don't measure. you know.
Yeah.
So whether that's testing your blood, whether that's experimenting with different food or whatever it is, I'm not great at managing it in terms of measuring it in terms of, I don't keep a detailed food diary. I estimate my carbs more often than not. I'm not like obsessive over these things because it would drive me insane. But all the while, I like to keep tabs, and whether that's just through posting on Instagram and like talking to people online and reading what they have to say, that to me is part of measurement, because you're understanding what other people are going through as well, and that helps you measure where you are against a lot. And tough to say that, and then say don't compare, because comparing is a slippery slope. But all the same, reading through and hearing through what someone else is going through helps you measure, I feel, what you're going through at the same time, and it can be a really powerful tool to feel less alone and feel like you're part of a community, which is what the whole T1D global family is all about.
Yeah, that's just amazing, man. And I mean, just having everyone just signed in from all over the world, it just shows that, like, it doesn't matter which city or which country you're on, we're still one global family.
Yeah. Sure.
Exactly.
We've come to we've just hit the hour mark, so we've gone a little bit. We feel like it's been 5 minutes, to be honest with you guys. I really enjoyed talking to all of you, so thank you for you guys again for joining us. I just want to say we can probably keep it going for 5 minutes or so. I mean, I'm not in a rush, but I know plenty of our viewers have given up time on their Sunday, and you guys have as well. So we'll wrap up in 5 minutes. So I just want to give anyone else the chance to put any questions in the comments. Anyone has any questions for any of us, or just want to share your experiences, share your thoughts. Again, we really thank you for tuning in and for staying with us for the full hour. We're kind of flattered you would listen to us go just talk about random stuff. Hopefully not too random, but we really appreciate you guys joining us. So please, for the last 5 minutes, if you have any questions, comments, just chuck in the box. I guess real quick though, for me, what I find why exercise and keeping it as routine is so transformative is because not just because of the physical benefits of exercise and so on and so forth, but because it forms such a powerful anchor to your day. As type 1 diabetics, we have to have a bit of routine and structure about our days, right? When it comes to measuring sugars and all the rest of it, right? An exercise routine will anchor your life, will anchor your lifestyle, your daily routine, whatever it is, in such a powerful and profound way, because it gives you a sense of achievement and discipline and systematic and routine and so on. And also the knock-on effects from crushing a good workout or for beating a personal best during a run, the knock-on effects through the rest of the day are so powerful. Like, you feel like, if you wake up and you go and you start the day with a really good workout or a run, you feel like the king or queen for the rest of the day. You feel powerful, you feel energized. You're less likely to make unhealthy food choices. Like, if you smash a workout or you crush a personal best, you're not going to come home and pig out on sweets and chips and so on. You're probably going to make a healthy meal decision too. And even if you want to treat yourself and get some junk food in, because who doesn't? I mean, I love a cheeseburger. At least then you've kind of balanced it out by burning the calories for it. So it's not just about building muscle or looking good or whatever it might be, but also like the way that exercise anchors your routine and gives you that structure has such a powerful effect on the rest of your day. So that's like, if I was to recommend exercise for any reason to anyone, that would be a huge aspect of that. Why I encourage people to make regular exercise. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to train like a bodybuilder or run marathons like Greg. I mean, you can if you want. I mean, more power to you. I will never, but you don't have to be as crazy as Greg. You can just go for like a nice long walk every day, and the benefits will still be absolutely there. I don't know whether you...
So it sounds like I have a trip over to you to make. Sounds like we have some things I look forward to it.
You do want to get for marathon, you can not me. Greg's your marathon guy. Right?
So I think Jacob, just a final thought also from my side is that we put this out with the intention of, like, being men not shy to sort of show our vulnerable side, to speak about what impacts our confidence, when we tied it in with fitness. But yet, the men still shied away in the comment section. But it's fine. They've got 2 more webinars that we'll do next week. Where I really think it's probably going to get a bit spicy. We're going to be speaking about sexual health. We're going to be speaking about all of that. How does your diabetes affect spontaneous sex? How does it affect your erections? How does it affect your performance and your sex drive? So it's definitely going to be like a fully open discussion, with,
Sure.
I wouldn't say no limits. Maybe there's certain limits, but everything's okay, to speak about. And we'll definitely be communicating with everyone about that as well throughout the course of the week. And I want to see more men active in the comment section. I think we're going to light it up next week.
Yeah, I feel like the comments will be going off next week. We might have to get a separate moderator in here because I feel like there's going to be a lot of that's what we want, right? We want to
parental guidance.
Exactly that, yeah. This
Yeah.
is definitely not PG-13. But that's what
Exactly.
we want, right? We want to create these discussions and have them. And so with that in mind, so I think we'll look forward to next week immensely. We'll be like in touch throughout the week. We'll be sharing it on socials and everything. And so hopefully everyone that's joined us today will be able to join us again next week and bring your comments, bring your questions, because we're going to be pretty raw, I think, pretty open next week. But for now,
light it up.
We're going to light it up, yeah. But for now, I think we've gone over the hour mark, so I think the people have been listening to us for long enough for now. But for all of you tuning in, we really, really appreciate your time, and we really appreciate your support and your comments and your attention. Hopefully we've shone a little bit of a light on what exercise and diabetes is like for guys of different backgrounds, different experiences, and so on, and what it really means to us on a personal level. So thank you, Brennan. He feels like we've done a good job. Appreciate it. I'm going to put it on screen for posterity. Thank you, Brennan. We appreciate it, and thank you all very much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Greg, Sally, we really appreciate it too. Sally, especially for being so vulnerable and so honest with your perspective on things. And we're just delighted that you found the support that you need, and it's great to hear that your professional help has merged now into your personal help. Which is great. Paul, thank you very much, Paul. Really appreciate it. Hope you did learn something. Love it. We love it.
It's nice to see the guys emerge from the cracks.
Yeah, Paul. I know. I'm sure if Paul can tune in next week, he'll have a few comments to say about the sexual health conversation. He'll be teasing me relentlessly. So Paul, if you're around next week, tune in and you can put me on the spot. All right, and Dallas, thank you so very much. We really appreciate it too. So, guys, again, I'll say goodnight and goodbye. Thank you very much for joining us on your Sunday, and we will of course stay in touch and stay connected, and we will see you all again next week for episode 2, which will be sexual health and body image. No, sexual health and relationships. Sorry, this was body image.
That's it. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. We hope it was different.
Hopefully. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye now.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.